Well, hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel, Gospel Simplicity. It's so good to be back with you guys here after a week off for Thanksgiving last week, spending some time with some family. I'm really glad to be back making these videos. So if you're new and you're like, what's this channel all about? Well, I'm glad you asked. This is a place where we're passionate about the beautiful simplicity and transformative power of the gospel. We're out to talk about life, Jesus, and the journey of faith in a real, honest, and open way. So if that sounds interesting to you and you haven't subscribed already, I'd really encourage you to hit subscribe down below to become a part of what we're doing here on this channel. Well, like I said, guys, I'm so excited to be back, but I don't know what kind of season you're in right now. I have to say right now, things are kind of crazy. I mean, I had a break last week, which was so good, and then it's coming back and hitting the ground running. I've got finals coming up in just a couple days. If I'm being honest, it's a stressful season, and maybe you can relate. And wherever you are, whatever season of life, maybe you've got finals coming up too, or maybe you're dealing with something completely different. I think the same principle applies, that so many of us find ourselves in these stressful times. And it's in times like this that we can often wonder, like, so what do we do as Christians with stress? Am I not supposed to ever be stressed? How do I handle stress? And that's what I want to talk to you about today. And perhaps today more than ever, I'm preaching to myself, and because I need this message. I don't always do this well. I have a tendency to overload, and then realize, like, I'm gonna lose my mind. And so this is for me as much or more probably than it is for any of you, but I hope this helps you, because I really think these things can help. They've helped me. I'm not perfect at it. I've gotten better at handling stress, and it's something I'm actively working on. So here are thoughts that work for me. If they work for you, fantastic. And they're coming from the Bible, so that counts for something, right? Anyway, here we go. The first tip I have for you guys, and I hate how cliche this is going to sound, because I've been at points in my life where if people told me this, I would roll my eyes and be like, dude, come on. Like, this is the answer you give me. And if you're there, I get it. But it's cliche for a reason, because, well, it actually works. And so the first thing groundbreaking I know that I would suggest to you when you find yourself stressed is to pray. And it's not the craziest idea you've ever heard, but I dare you to actually try it, because I know I've been in places where in my life where I'd be like, oh, come on, that's not going to work. But I wasn't actually doing it. And your prayer life is so important. And I want you to look at like 1 Peter 5:7, where we're told, cast your cares upon the Lord because he cares. We have to recognize that God cares about us when we're going through these stressful times, whatever it is. God's not distant from us, but he actively cares for us. He wants to see us through these situations. He does not leave us, but he walks through them with us. And he's saying, cast your cares on me. Like, I'll take this weight. You don't have to carry that by yourself. And so we need to do that. Come before God and say, God, I'm stressed. Like, I got a lot going on. I've got finals, I've got work stuff, whatever it is. Be like, God, I'm worried. And just the act of doing that, that's going to help. And God wants to walk through that with you. In other places like Philippians 4:4-7, there's this wonderful passage where we're told, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication, make your requests known to God. And I love how it starts off right before that, because often we hear that chunk, but we don't look at verse 4 or 5 or whichever one it is right there, where it says, the Lord is near, the Lord is at hand, whichever translation you're reading from, that we go before God and we present our request to him, and we lose that anxiety as a result of recognizing that God is near to us. Again, so often we want to think, God's far from me. God doesn't get this. God doesn't care about these things. But no, like, God is near, and that's why we go to him in prayer, because he cares for us, because ultimately he's the one that can do something about these situations. And in the life of Jesus, we actually see this modeled when he's coming into his most stressful time before he goes to the cross, which makes my finals look absolutely silly. Like, this is what you're stressed about? Jesus had to go to the cross. Little perspective there, right? But when he's at this most difficult time, he turns to prayer. He prays to God, which, like, try to wrap your mind around that, right? But this is what Jesus does when he is presented with difficult times. And not only does he go pray, but there's another interesting detail there, that he brings his friends, and yeah, they kind of sucked because they fall asleep on him, and then he wakes them up and they fall asleep. Like, go read the story. But the idea is there, right? Like, you go to God in prayer and you surround yourself with people who also love God and are going to be there for you. We, bear one another's burdens. That another biblical idea there. Like, we don't do these things alone. We bring them to God. We do it in the context of community. If you're stressed right now, don't handle all of that weight by yourself. Give it to God and be surrounded by people that can lift you up, that can build you up. That is what's going to help you get through things. So pray and surround yourself with people who love God and who love you. And then the next thing I want to talk about, which is intimately related to prayer, but if you're going through a stressful time, another tip would be to maintain your perspective. When we get caught up in stressful times, it feels like this is the most important thing ever. And I'm not saying it's not important, but remember that, we are eternal beings. Like, our timeline does not end right after this stressful thing, and it doesn't even end at the end of our lives. We are created to live with God for eternity. So, in Colossians 3:2, it tells us to set our minds on things above, not on things on this earth. Like, we are citizens of heaven, right? Like, this life is not all there is. And so we have to put our stresses in perspective. Like, in light of eternity, okay, maybe this isn't as stress-inducing as I think it is. Maybe this isn't as bad as I thought. And I'm not trying to make light of what you're going through. I'm certain that there are people watching this video that are going through really, really difficult things. But hold on to that hope. That this isn't it. That, this is not the moment that defines you. In fact, nothing you do will ever be your defining act. The defining act of your life is what Jesus already did. It's not about what you do, it's what he has done. And so allow that to take some of that weight off of you. And remember, we're going to set our minds on things above. We're going to maintain that perspective. And in James 4:14, we see that, our lives are but a mist, right? Like, in light of eternity, things go by quick. And even in our short lives, we can see this. I was talking with a friend the other day, and we were just kind of laughing about, when we were trying out for our high school sports team's freshman year, that seemed like the most important thing that would ever happen to us. Like, if we didn't make that team, our lives would end. And then just a few years later, we can look back and laugh and feel like we were so short-sighted. And oftentimes, short-sightedness is actually the root of so much sin in our lives. So often we trade long-term satisfaction in God with short-term just pleasure in these little things. And the result, and the problem is our short-sightedness. The result is sin, and the root of it is just a short-sightedness, a lack of perspective. We trade so often just, a godly life in the long term, like true obedience and holiness and just maturity, for just short-term things. And so we need to maintain an eternal perspective, look long down. Like, my life goes on past these finals, as much as it can seem like that's not the case, because things get right in front of us, but we need to move out and look beyond. That is how we maintain that perspective. And we're only going to maintain perspective through prayer, through being in community, through reading the Word of God, right? That is how we do that. So I just want to encourage you with that. Like, keep that long perspective. Think in light of eternity. That is what really begins to shape us when we look on an eternal timeline, not just at what's right in front of us. And then the last thing I want to share with you is one I really like, and it's a great story from the book of 1 Kings. We find it in chapters 18 and 19. It's about Elijah the prophet, and he has like this mountaintop moment where he's facing off with the prophets of Baal, and it's like, my God's better than your God. They're having this whole fight, and so they build these altars, and they say, which God can send down fire, and there's all hundreds of prophets of Baal, 450, and they get nothing. They can't get this altar to go up in flames through, all these things they're doing to try to get Baal's attention. And then Elijah, all by himself, stands there and he calls on God, and God sends fire and he consumes the whole thing after Elijah soaked it in water, just add insult to injury. And it's this crazy thing, and it's like, oh my goodness, Elijah, you're at the top. You can't be you have to be living the good life. But then so soon after that, and how true is this in our life, that we have these highs and lows that can come so quick, he finds out that Jezebel wants to kill him. And you'd think he'd be full of faith, he just saw God show up in this mighty, mighty way. But instead, he runs out into the wilderness, sits under this tree, and asks God to kill him, just showing he has no faith that he can make it out of this. And some of you might have gone from stressed to despair. You might be feeling like the thing that's in front of you, you can't handle. You might be feeling like there is no way out of this. And I love what happens next in this story because it's so simple. You know, I want to say if you're there, there's always hope in Christ. That, again, take these first two things, maintain that eternal perspective, and see that God can take any situation and turn it around. Like, there is always hope. But sometimes what we need is just very little things. Sometimes if you're in a stressful season, you just need to do the little things. And in this case, the angel shows up and you're expecting this angel to just like fix the situation, change everything, make everything better. And instead he just looks at Elijah and says, get up, eat, drink. He gives him some food, gives him some water. Sometimes that's what we need, literally. And then he goes back to bed. Like, sometimes in the midst of stress, what we need is like, go eat. Don't be like skipping all your meals because you're so worried. Like, that's not going to help you. Go eat, go drink, stay hydrated. Like, you're like, Austin, these aren't spiritual things. Like, this was the advice of the angel. I'm just passing that along to you. Check it out. 1 Kings 19. Like, get up, go eat something. Like, get out of bed. If you feel like that despair, like, get something to eat, get something to drink, and sleep. Like, get some rest. These aren't spiritual. Everything is spiritual. Like, God is redeeming our whole lives. God doesn't just care about like your Sunday morning experience. He cares about all of you, and that includes your physical body and your well-being, and all of these things are intimately related. Like, you're not going to have good spiritual health when you're having bad, physical health or mental. Like, these things are interconnected. And so sometimes if you're in a stressful season, like, go eat, go drink, get some sleep. These things are going to set you up for success. Not groundbreaking, I know, but how often do we neglect that? So guys, putting all these things together, we've got prayer, we've got perspective, we've got community, we have our friends, and we have just doing the little things. And I want to say, if you're feeling stressed right now, first of all, you're not alone. Like, I'm there with you. But that's not inherently sinful, right? Like, your feelings aren't inherently sinful. But what are we gonna do with that? You feel stressed. And where does that come from? And let's look at that and be like, oh, like, what fear is driving this? And we read in 1 John, perfect love casts out fear. When we understand things through the lens of God, through the lens of eternity, like, our fears should melt away. That we are loved infinitely by God. Like, okay, that should strip away these fears. And don't feel condemned for having these fears and stresses, but like, just figure out where they're coming from. What are we going to do about that? And let's get them out into the light. Let's look at it. Let's bring them before God, casting our cares before God and saying, okay, like, this is what I'm feeling. And okay, now I know what to do, right? We have to get it in the light, and then we can deal with it. And then oftentimes also, like, how we react to our feelings says way more than the fact that we're feeling them, right? Like, these feelings, they happen, circumstances happen, and they make you feel things, and that's okay. But what are we going to do next? And sometimes, we just try to ramp up. We try to go. Like, I can do this. And what that betrays is like, okay, we're not really trusting God. That fear, lack of trust, this sense that like, I've got this on my own. Okay, we're not really trusting God. And I'm not saying that the result is we sit back and we do nothing because God's got it. Like, no, sometimes stress comes. Like, I've got finals, I have to study. Like, and sometimes you've got a lot going on in life. And yeah, it's just a busy season. Do everything as though you're doing it for the Lord, not for man, right? Like, we've got to work hard. That's part of life. But remember that work doesn't define you. Remember that you don't work on your own, that you do it through the power and the grace of God. And as you do it, remember, like, okay, this is just one moment. My life is a mist. I am created for more than this. God has a plan, and it doesn't stop here. So guys, I hope this video encourages you. If you're in a stressful season, I hope this provides you some hope and some just practical tips to get through it, to survive, and maybe even thrive. Thank you so much for watching this video. Seriously, it just means the world to me. I'm so grateful to each and every one of you guys to take the time to watch these videos, to comment, to let me know what you're thinking. I so love doing these, and knowing that it's making an impact in some of your lives is just such an amazing thing and so special for me. So thank you for that. If you did enjoy this video, I'd encourage you to click like, leave me a comment. I love interacting with those. And if you haven't already, I'd encourage you to hit subscribe to become a part of what we're doing here on this channel, if that's something you're interested in. But until next time, guys, I encourage you to be on the lookout for more videos and to go out and, as always, love God and love others, because that will change the world. Peace. Love you guys so much. See you next time.